advantage of time. Welcome all. We have all our presenters here in the meeting. You can see some from Entebbe. Some you can just whip your hand up. We have Victor, who is in Macedonia right now. Victor, you can just raise your hand up. Yeah. We have, yes, thank you. We have Edith. Edith, you can put your hand up. Just wave. And Richard, I had seen Richard somewhere. Yeah, I can see Richard, but he's offline, which is okay. And we also have, I can see representatives from Council of Governors. I see Tom Kataka and a number of his colleagues who are here. So welcome all. We also see our colleagues from southern part of Africa. I can see colleagues from Southern Africa. I see from Zambia, Namibia. I see one from Rwanda. Please welcome as we wait for the others. We are about to start. And as you all know, this is our last alumni talk for the year. We had another one a couple of months ago. And one of the things that we do to achieve is that we try and share knowledge amongst our alumni who have participated in ICLD programs. And also, we also invite our colleagues who benefit from this kind of learning. And we like to learn from our very own alumni. In fact, all the people who are presenting today are in one way associated with ICLD, either as a researcher or as a partner, like COG, they are our partners. Edith is an alumni and also heading one of the multiple partnerships. And we are happy to have you so that we can learn from you, your own experiences, and then some of our other colleagues can also share what they know. Today's topic is about assisted budgeting, and also today is a Human Rights Day. Happy Human Rights Day to all of you. And we'd like to hear how each one of you has been doing this. But before we can go to presenters, I'll ask Clara to make opening remarks on behalf of ICLD and share very briefly about what is citizen budgeting. Over to you, Clara.
Thank you very much, John, and good afternoon to everyone. It's a pleasure to join you today on this Human Rights Day, because today we celebrate the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and its vision of equality, of dignity, and of participation for all. And ICLD, the International Center for Local Democracy, as you know quite well, I think most of you, we are committed to fostering democratic governance at the local level, as all of you are. We believe in empowering municipalities and communities to create inclusive and transparent and participatory governance system. And this commitment underpins the work we do globally with local governments and various stakeholders. So Human Rights Day reminds us of the fundamental rights that enable democratic societies to thrive. Do you mind closing your microphones? Thank you. Yeah, so Human Rights Day reminds us of the rights that enable democratic societies to thrive. And one of these fundamental rights is the right to participate in public affairs, as this is enshrined in the UDHR, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that we celebrate today. And transparency in local governance is key to ensuring this right is realized. So that's why this link that we are acknowledging today between human rights and transparent local budgets is so important. Because local democracy is where the principles of transparency and participation have their most immediate impact. And by strengthening these principles, we create more resilient and equitable communities. So initiatives like this one and like these ones that will be highlighted today by all of the speakers shows how municipalities can lead the way in actualizing these ideals, but also how we need the support of the research community and of other actors such as the local government associations that can help spread good practices and scale up and turn our focus to the national level and share practices across different municipalities. So ICLD remains dedicated to supporting all of these efforts, including everything that you do on the side of this. And we're very inspired by the incredible work that is being shared here today and everything that is going on behind what is shared here today. Because here we are today tying together several of ICLD's areas of operations. We have municipalities from our municipal partnership program. Also, I would like to say congratulations to Entebbe for having your new project application approved today with Strängnäs municipality in Sweden. We also have the generous and much appreciated participation of the local government associations to help us put this work in the broader perspective and also to scale up best practices. And also research from a research project funded by ICLD's Knowledge Center is another leg of ICLD's operations that we see all tying together here today. And of course, perhaps most importantly, the alumni of ICLD training programs. Without you, there would be no one to share this with and no one to scale up and cascade this knowledge into your various organizations. So with that, thank you for being here, and we look forward to hearing all the fantastic speakers. Over to you, John.
Oh, thank you so much, Krala, for that introduction. At least now we understand, and congratulations, Entebbe, with Strangness. I think I've been to both municipalities. And for those who are joining us, maybe they are not ICLD or have not engaged with ICLD. Some of the four core values, which actually form part of this conversation, is equity, participation, transparency, and accountability. And we'd like to hear how you link these four core values within the projects that you're undertaking. With that, allow me to invite the first speaker, Edith Kingoli. Edith, as you prepare, Edith is based in Murang'a Municipality in Kenya. She's the coordinator for a municipal partnership between Murang'a Municipality and Upra's Brew. They have a program related to children within the Sustainable Fisheries Network. And Edith is not new to ICLD. She's been actually supporting us in a number of activities in the last couple of years. Edith also participated in the research that was done on citizen budgeting with Victor and also Entebbe. So Edith has also a couple of ideas and knowledge about the topic we are discussing today. So Edith, if you are ready, over to you. You have 7 minutes. Are you ready from your side, or we can do it from our side?
I'm ready from my side. I don't know whether you can see what I'm sharing. Can you see my presentation? No.
Not yet.
John?
Not yet.
Be done.
Not yet.
So
Possibly. Odichele Primary School.
Do I go ahead? Possibly you can.
Or we can screen it from our side.
Please screen it from your side.
Okay, Krala.
Yeah.
Jai. Ongolajo, I have tapped it konye. Ebala Kolikete is speaking.
Can you see it now?
Okay, you see it now. Good. So.
And you just tell me when to shift, okay?
Okay, so that is our county logo. We're always talking about growing together. This is Murang'a County, who hosts the Murang'a municipality. Next. The citizen budgeting process in our county, as with all the counties in Kenya, is aimed at enhancing transparency, like John has said, inclusiveness and accountability in allocation of the utilized resources, which are definitely public resources. It is part of the broader devolution process, which seeks to bring governance and decision-making to the people. It is also an overview of how the citizen budgeting process works in Murang'a County, including its practices and the key steps involved. Next, the budgeting process and procedure is institutionalized, and it has a legal framework. So the county government, which is led by our county governor, the Honorable Kangata, and the county assembly is responsible for preparing the budget. It involves all the county departments and the county treasury. When we talk about the county departments, the municipality is one of the departments in the county. Public participation forums, these are meetings, workshops, consultations, where everybody is invited to discuss their needs and their priorities. The civil society organizations, the media, play a role in mobilizing the citizens, raising awareness, and holding the government accountable. The media helps disseminate information about the budgeting process. Next. Oh, can't read from where I sit. The county government follows an annual budget cycle that starts in the second half of the financial year, that is from July. The process has several stages: the preparation of the budget, which includes the review of the previous budgets and financial performance, estimating revenue from local taxes, that is what you collect from locally, like from the bus parks, from the all those what we collect locally as Muranga, and also the transfers from the national government and other sources. We identify the priority areas for funding based on the county development plan and the community needs. Public participation is a key feature in the county government's budgeting process. The county government organizes public hearings, consultative meetings and forums, and budget dialogues where citizens, community-based organizations, and all stakeholders have an opportunity to express their needs, challenges, and priorities. We also encourage the citizens to suggest the projects they need that are a priority to them. The process starts at the ward level. The ward is the smallest organ in a county. Then it goes to the county level, and the input is escalated through the population. The budget formulation is done after gathering the input from the citizens. The budget is formulated based on the priorities gathered during the
Some of the remarks made by the president.
This includes this stage includes finalizing the revenue and expenditure estimates, prioritizing the projects and programs and services, and allocating funds to different sections such as health, education, agriculture, infrastructure, social welfare, municipality, among others. Next. The budget cycle in Muranga. Once the budget is presented to the County Assembly for review and approval, the Assembly holds debates and public hearings where additional citizen input can be solicited. The ward representatives, that is what we call the members of the county assemblies, play an important role in ensuring that the needs of the constituents are considered in the final budget. The county assembly has the mandate to approve, reject, or make amendments to the proposed budget. Implementation and monitoring is done once the budget is approved by the county assembly in the implementation phase. The county treasury oversees the allocation of funds to the various departments and the approved projects and services. There's a lot of monitoring and evaluation that is carried out to assess the implementation of the projects, whether they meet the needs of the community. And this is where you see that we also involve the community because we engage them as they prioritize their projects. The citizens are involved in monitoring, where they perform social audits and community oversight committees, expenditure and tracking to ensure that the funds are used effectively. Citizens and civil society organizations track government spending on different projects. There are mechanisms such as audit reports from the Auditor General that review how the budget was executed, and citizen report cards and budget tracking initiatives which provide public feedback on delivery of services which are funded by the budget. Next. It is not without challenges when we are undertaking this process. The process is not as it was in the beginning, and some of the challenges that we face is low civic engagement. We make a lot of efforts like informing people through the media, but some citizens do not fully understand the budgeting process or the significance of their participation. And this leads them to a lot of complaining, and actually they did not they say they were not involved, but I think it's ignorance. And then there's limited capacity. Some county officials and departments may not have the technical capacity to implement robust budgeting and monitoring mechanisms. Access to information, there may be delays or barriers to accessing information about the budget, which can limit citizens' ability to effectively participate. And there's also political influence, which affects budgets because they are influenced by politicians rather than development needs. Next. Some of the best practices that we've had in the citizen budgeting include inclusivity. You've seen we include everybody in the population as we do this. There's use of technology. The county has adopted various platforms for communicating with citizens, such as social media. We have websites all over, online surveys and SMS platforms, capacity building. The government organizes workshops, training sessions that help citizens understand the budget process and how they can engage meaningfully, and partnerships with civil society organizations, which are instrumental in advocating for increased transparency and accountability, as well as facilitating citizen engagement in the budgeting process. In conclusion, the citizen budgeting process in Murang'a is aimed at making the allocation and use of public funds more transparent, inclusive, and responsive to the needs of the citizens. And while there's still challenges in fully achieving the vision, we continuously make efforts to improve public participation, transparency, accountability, to ensure that county resources are used to address the development priorities of the people. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Edith. You have taken your 7 minutes well. You have utilized that pretty well.
Thank you.
Actually, on the minute, that was very good for you to do that. And thank you for those sharing some of good examples and also the challenges that you are going in Murang'a. I am familiar with that particular system, so I would like to hear now from local governments in Uganda. In Kenya, we have devolution, we have devolved units, and in Uganda, we have local government structure where they have about 5 levels of governance. And we'll hear from Samson, if you're ready. You'll be next. And as Clara had requested, we could be able to share the slides from that edge. Samson is a partner with ICLD. He's team leading one of the projects that is within the Climate Action. Climate Action is a network that has projects whose focus is either on environment or climate change. They're on climate change. And we've been working, and Congress today, they have won a municipal partnership with one of the municipalities in Sweden called Strängnäs. Thank you so much. Samson, if you're ready, this is your time. You have 7 minutes, starting now.
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but quite low. If you can come closer to the microphone.
A little low, but yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
I'll try to be a bit loud. Thank you very much for hosting me at this moment. And let me talk about the citizens budget. Okay. Briefly, we began preparing the citizens budget in May after being contacted by ICLD whether we would like to participate, and yes, we wanted to participate. And over time, we had several discussions with the several stakeholders, which included the councillors, the representatives for the marginalized groups, the women, the PWDs, and many others. And around July, work began in drafting the citizens budget. And, hello? The citizens budget was ready around November, and we have used it as a tool in our budget conference, which was held last Friday. And more to that, okay, we had a few highlights of our citizens' budget. First of all, in the budget, we tried to explain the difference between the budget figures and the actual figures, which was very important to our stakeholders, because at times they mix up the budget and the actual figures which we are using in the execution of investments. And then also we had a page which was working on the budgeting process, the budgeting cycle, we had that. And also it gave an insight into the performance of the immediate past financial year, and also gave an insight into the current financial year, the performance so far, and including the budget allocations. We also got an insight into the budget of the coming financial year, 2025-2026, including expected key revenues sources and the budget and the corresponding expenditures, which are also the areas of investment. It also gave us a summary of the investments projects, both completed and ongoing. Then it also mentioned the challenges encountered during implementation of the investments in the previous year. And the citizens' budget is produced using minimum text and figures. We are putting more graphs, photographs, and preferably it was in color. That's also a very, very good advantage.
After 1 year, very short time, getting some problem. And if they make errors. So let us give them the 2 years.
Juliet, can you please turn off your microphone?
Then a chance to do their work.
The few things you've learned from the citizens' budget. It ensures accountability, it's quite inclusive, and ensures there's equity, participation, and transparency all through the prescribed budgeting processes. During the budget conference, we were using it as a tool, so it was the main document for the budget conference, and it made the budget conference very interesting and very interactive. The citizens' budget empowers and informs the public with critical information that helps them give positive contribution to the budgeting process. We've always had the big budget books, which were very difficult for the community or even for us, the technicians, to follow. But with the community budget, it's much, much easier for everyone to follow. So it was a very interesting budget conference this time. And also, it makes monitoring, evaluation, and reporting easier for everybody, including technicians, because some technicians also cannot follow the budget quite easily because of its size and the figures and things like that. So it was a very interesting document to have this time. And yes, I thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you so much, Samson.
Yeah,
John,
thank you.
you.
Yeah, continue. Yeah, thank you, Samson. That was good. At least we are learning from a different setup of local governance. From Kenya, we had the county governments, how they work with county assemblies and the civil society. Now we've had Samson, how they operates and works. Thank you so much, Samson, for that. And now we will hear from Victor. Victor had the honor of working with the Mulanga municipality and also Entebbe, and also I think from other sources. And he has done an extensive research on citizen budgeting. And if Victor, you are ready, I'm sure the report is coming out now, but you're going to see the report later perhaps. But maybe now Victor can share with us some of the insights. And this brings us to one of the core areas of ICLD, where we connect research and practice Some of the materials that we get from our researchers like Victor, we share them with the local government practitioners so that you learn from those researchers what's happening and what you can be able to learn in the research. Victor, if you're ready, please go ahead. You have 7 minutes starting now.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, everyone. It is a great pleasure to be speaking today because this is a topic that we've been working with and researching for the past 5 or 6 years. And it turns out that it is still relevant and it's becoming even more relevant with all the findings and context that we gathered from our project with ICLD, working with 3 municipalities in Africa. As previously mentioned, we did have a great collaboration with Murang'a municipality and Tebe municipality and rural district of Gutu in Zimbabwe. And I would like to start by saying that I think that when we started the research, our hypothesis were that we would be facing something which is very different from what we already done with our previous research in Macedonia, in the countries that surround the country where I live and come from. However, in its essence, the context might be different, but the process and the meaning of the citizen budget is more or less the same wherever you go. Why? Because the citizens are the ones that are in the center point of citizen budgeting. If in the past it was enough for local governments or central governments to present one or few pages document simplifying the budget process or simplifying the budget information. Today, it's different because citizens receive a lot more information and they're digesting a lot more information. However, what is very interesting and what is specific, especially for the African context, when researching this topic, is the fact that one of the reasons why citizen budgets, or one of the areas where citizen budgets can help, is actually revenue mobilization. And you would wonder how come a revenue mobilization can be part of something which is linked to being more transparent or more accountable. In fact, a lot of the local governments that we worked with, both in Europe and in Africa, we figured out that citizens usually want to pay for services or pay their duties if they see something as a feedback, or they see the result of that funding or paying the taxes. So that's why simplifying what is written in those long pages of budget documents can be one step towards making the citizens more interactive or engaging with the local governments. In Zimbabwe and in Uganda and in Kenya, we saw that the central governments have very comprehensive data sources for central governments. And in some of the countries, we also saw that that goes down to the local governments and as long as the devolution goes. However, those websites and those platforms where you can find all that information over there is rarely used by regular citizens. Citizens still can't see the benefit of having everything in one place. That's why the local governments are the ones, or the advocates for the citizen budget, because the local governments, or as Edith said, the warts, the structures within the budget system actually provide a great avenue for local governments and citizens to interact and actually understand each other. You can't expect citizens to be willing to contribute towards the budget if you don't let them know what the budget is and what it serves. At the same time, we have to be very much aware and cautious when we talk about citizen budget, because many times citizen budget gets confused or mixed up with citizen participation. Citizen participation and citizen budget are very complementary, but at the same time, citizen participation, it's rooted in the African societies. In many of the countries that we work with, it's even a constitutional matter. However, from what we saw, the people that participate, the citizens that participate, and Edith actually said that earlier, sometimes they're not aware that they're part of a budget process, or they don't see the value of that formalized participation. That's why when we talk to higher officials from Uganda, we were reminded about a very important part of what a citizen budget can look like, and what the meaning of a citizen budget can be actually emphasized is actually through the usage of the system itself. And again, this is not contextual only to Africa. This is everywhere in the world. Usually the elected officials, the public, the councillors at the county or the local government assembly, they rarely know and understand budget processes, and what the budget says. Therefore, if we want to have the right or the meaningful and beneficial interaction between citizens and governments in general, we have to pay attention to actually empowering the public elected officials as well, because they are the ones that communicate with the local communities. Of course, many times underserved communities, underserved groups are avoided in that circle. And that's why the local governments have to have ways to communicate and reach those people. We were very thankful to the 3 municipalities that allowed us to actually meet with locals, to go to the market, to speak to the NGOs, to the civil society, to speak to the youth. One of the largest problems that we face everywhere in the world is the lack of interest of youth in budget processes, especially local budget processes. But that's why we have to start somewhere and find ways and tools that can be beneficial for all. And at the end, I think the first thing that made us think that we would face with something very different, a different world when it comes to citizen budget, was the digitalization. In the digital world that we live in, we have to be aware that there are going to be people that would be excluded, those that are not able to use digital tools. However, from our African experience, from the visits that we made, we saw that there are other channels that can be used, that locals use on everyday basis, like group chats, like WhatsApp messaging, SMS messaging, ways that local governments can use to engage budget information with to convey budget information with its citizens. So again, I think that this whole experience is very relevant.
And finally, on the issue of government property,
I'm looking
I was
forward
told of some
seeing
land
additional.
I was told that, Madam Speaker, you were there.
Yeah, can we?
The deputy mayor was there.
Mics?
Some of our civil servants.
Somebody who is Juliet Imbagi, please, Juliet.
Yes. So yeah, again, thank you for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to seeing the fruits of our research and the continuation of the work with a lot more municipalities and local governments all over the world, or wherever ICLD works. And unfortunately, we're still facing with very little amount of literature when it comes to citizen budget on local level. And it is something that probably we should all advocate more in order for the topic to be even more interesting for researchers all over the world. Because traveling around the world, I figured out that there are ways that actually connect us when it comes to citizen participation and citizen interest in budget processes. So I definitely believe that there is a lot of room for improvement and work and knowledge sharing between all engaged parties. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Victor. Thank you so much for that very valuable information. You've just made me just start looking forward to reading your report. You have also clarified a number of issues about citizen budgeting and citizen participation and the link between the two and how citizens' interests can be taken care of within the citizen budgeting processes. We have been informed by Clara, I think it's in the chat, that the report will be out soon and it will be shared with us. It has a lot of valuable information we can learn from those couple of areas that Victor was able to visit. And I think this is one of the areas that is quite key when it comes to ICLD. We have a citizen budgeting toolkit, which actually a link has been shared within the chat. You can also go online and have a look at how you can benefit from the materials that have been shared so far. Thank you so much. We are on time as well, Victor. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is a new kid in the block. They recently signed an MOU between ICLD and Ugandan Local Government Authority. I was there last week myself to witness the signing of the memorandum of understanding between the Secretary General, who is Richard Okuku, and he's here with us, and also the President, Mr. President, who is Mr. Awane Andrew Moses. The new president was elected last week. So we have a new team joining ICLD from last week, and welcome Richard Okuku. Richard is the Secretary General of ULGA, a huge association in Uganda that has a number of members. And one of the many things that they are passionate about is making sure that some of these core areas we are talking about are also shared within their membership in Uganda. We will be talking more with Richard later on about our relationships and collaboration. But in the meantime, Richard, this is your time. We'd like to know how you do citizen budgets in Uganda. I know it's very different from ours completely. Perhaps Victor has mentioned a little of how what he learned in Entebbe, but we'd like to hear from you as the association. What are the practices and how is ULGA participating in supporting those local governments in different levels? Welcome, and if you're ready, Clara, you can start Richard's slides.
Thank you. As Clara sets up the slides, it's good to be here, and it's good to come after the presentation that has just been made, but also from Samson. So that will spare me a bit of time, not to delve so much into some of the aspects that have been talked about. So the first slide, if we may go to the first slide, Clara.
Can you see it?
Yes, so just, I think the first slide was just introducing ULGA, what we are, and I will not take a lot of time on that. John has helped me in explaining what we are, so we can go to the next slide. So I'll talk about the local budget transparency in Uganda, and I want to highlight that as a country, we have really made significant improvement in budget transparency as a country at national level, but also at the local government level. So I will refer to the Open Budget Survey 2023, which came immediately after the COVID-19 pandemic. So where under transparency as a country, we scored at 59 out of 100%. So, and you know, we came in first in the region, in the East African region, in terms of budget transparency. We came out as number one, but also above the global average. Because averagely, the global levels, it was about 45%. So we did well as a country, and this reflects at all levels, national and local government level. So under public participation, we only scored 15 out of 100%. So and the global average was 15%. So we were number 3, you know, after Kenya and Rwanda. So in terms of public participation, Kenya and Rwanda are doing quite better in that regard. But one of the reasons that we really advanced for the minimal performance was the COVID-19 pandemic, which limited movements of people, so people could not convene to participate in meetings. But under budget oversight, we scored 67 out of 100. So which is a significant signal that as a country, we are doing relatively well in terms of budget oversight. The next slide, please. So the budget processes in Uganda are premised on 3 core principles, and I will start with the transparency, which is the topic for today's discussion. So we have the budget cycle, where the communication is openly made to the accounting officers at the local government level to submit their indicative planning figures. So those are the IPFs. And then the budget framework papers are published for public consumption and review. So I also highlight that during this budgeting process, a number of civil society organizations do engage citizens, and they train them on public expenditure tracking, but they also create awareness on how citizens' voices can be heard in the budgeting process. So the results of the monitoring that are conducted by the citizens are shared at various sub-county and local district dialogues. Then we also have the district integrity promotion forums. But we also have barazas, where local governments put to task, where citizens put to task local government leaders, both technical and political leaders, to explain the budget and service delivery levels at the local government level. So if you budgeted to construct a number of roads or to fix a number of roads, so the citizens will be able to request the duty bearers to provide an accountability. So we also have a number of citizen feedback platforms, and I am glad that the previous presenter talked about the issue of citizens utilizing these platforms, but also the leaders. So we introduced the citizens feedback platform, which was introduced by the Office of the Auditor General, and the intention is basically to aid citizens in reporting in terms of budget utilization, because the Auditor General is mandated to audit all government agencies and local governments in terms of how they utilize resources. So the citizens will provide information to this platform, which we call the CFP, the Citizen Feedback Platform, and then the Auditor General relies on this information while conducting the audit at the local government level, which is one other process that enables the citizens to get a feel of what happens during the budgeting. Next slide. So in terms of public participation, when we talk of transparency, it also carries aspects of accountability and participation. So at the in the local governments in Uganda, planning starts at the village level. So then where the village, then we get to the parish level, where the parish plans are generated and then submitted to the sub-counties, and that eventually are submitted to the district. And that informs, the budgeting process. So citizens take a critical center stage during that stage, where at the parish level, but then also Samson talked about the budget conferences where citizens are invited to take part. But I am glad to also receive the report from Samson about the citizens' budget, explaining what the figures mean, going beyond just the figures. So illustrating that this is what we mean is a very critical stage, and which is not happening in a number of local governments. Of course, they will give you excuses related to finances in supporting these breakdowns. So the civil society organizations, as the representatives of the people, are also invited to participate in local government budget conferences, and they're also invited at parliament level when budgets are being scrutinized, that the ministerial policy statements are being scrutinized. So they are invited to also make a presentation, make a position. So we as an association, we are also invited at that level to also come and make a presentation on what we think about the budget, at that level, and the share of the local governments out of the national budget. So at the local governments, a number of local governments do pin summary figures. For example, under education, highlighting how much is allocated under education, and this information is pinned on public notice boards. Although the practice in some local governments is, not happening quite adequately, but in a number of local governments that are more urban, I think it is, it is happening. So citizens are more aware. The PSFT, this is the permanent secretary to the Treasury, organizes quarterly briefings on releases of different local governments. So every quarter, every 3 months, the permanent secretary, treasury will address the media, or he will publish a media notice indicating that we have made this release to these local governments. So the citizens will keep track of the released funds to ensure that it is put to good use. Next slide. On budget oversight. So budget oversight is undertaken by the district councillors. So we have the councillors, but also we have the technical heads and the district public accounts committees. They do undertake oversight roles, but this does not disregard the citizens, because the citizens do public expenditure monitoring. So they provide these reports, and they inform the expenditure reports. They also inform the next budgeting processes. So the Parliament of Uganda, and also looked at the Parliament of Uganda and the civil society organization and other partners also undertake budget monitoring. So we have members of Parliament that will go to the local governments and do monitoring to try to confirm whether resources were put to good use, and then other partners. So the Auditor General as well undertakes oversight of the budget, but by auditing the budget process and holding responsible local governments to account. So after the budget approval, the budget is uploaded to the budget website. And like the previous presenter mentioned, so usually one of the challenges we have noticed is that citizens' access to some of the online platforms is a bit limited. So we need to create more awareness to ensure that citizens really utilize these platforms. They scrutinize the budget. For example, when you visit the www.budget.co.ug, you will realize that all the district local government budgets are on the platform, and any citizen can keep track of the figures allocated to their area. And next slide. That marks the end of my 7 minutes. I hope I have not gone beyond. John, over to you. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for the kind attention.
Thank you so much, Richard. It's good to see you again after a couple of days. Yes, you are within time, and thank you for sharing what the association is doing in Uganda. I know you have very different structures of governance, unlike Kenya, for example, where you have 5 different levels: the village, the parish, the sub-county, the district, and the last one. And you have also shared the number of key areas that you promote within the local government system. Thank you so much. That I think some of the people would like to know a little bit more of you as we progress. I will not ask questions now, but maybe people will do that later as when we get to plenary. Finally, we have Council of Governors. Council of Governors is the umbrella body in Kenya that puts together all the governors. I don't want to preempt their introduction. And I see Tom. I don't know who is presenting Tom. If you're ready, please, this is your time.
John, we have our director. She'll take it up.
Okay. Welcome. This is your
time. Good evening, everyone. My name is Irene Ogamba, Director, Legal Services. I'm representing Mary Miti, the CEO of the Council of Governors, who was not able to make it for today's meeting, but sends her greetings, and she says that she's hoping to receive many recommendations from this discussion. And I've titled my representation as involvement of communities or citizens in the budgeting process, and which is aimed at reinforcing democratic governance, promoting accountability, and ensuring inclusivity in counties. My focus basically will be on the 47 county governments, but I also recognize that Murang'a County had already spoken. And let me say that Murang'a County is one of the counties that are coming up as counties that have made a lot of progress in terms of good governance and also enhancing accountability and also service delivery. Maybe before I make my presentation, allow me to say that the Council of Governors is an institution that brings together all the 47 governors from the 47 county governments. And basically because our constitutions has 2 levels of government, that is the national government and the county governments, which is basically the 47 county governments. And also to say that our constitution is one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. And one of the innovation in our constitution is really bringing the rights conversation around issues to do with the constitution. For the longest time, government never used to talk about rights and duties, but our constitution is very explicit about rights and duty discourse. And basically acknowledging that the human rights-based approach to service delivery is very important. And so my presentation will just be looking at issues around aspiration, the people of Kenya's aspiration for a government that is accountable, and going into the paper, which is basically the constitution. But it's important that we move from the constitution and look at the realities. And I want to resonate with what Victor has indicated, that many times when you're talking about the citizen budget, most people do not understand what it is. And I think it's very important that we understand the concept of citizen budget, because it is so interrelated with citizen participation and also public participation. But also recognizing that that when you're talking about citizen budget, you're talking about the population, you're talking about the people being at the center of decision making, but also recognizing that population is not homogeneous. And for you to really have a citizen budget, then you must understand what are the needs of the different population, how have they been involved in decision-making processes, and how do they then hold to account the government? Because when you're talking about a human rights-based approach to service delivery, you're basically talking about rights and a corresponding duty. But also understanding that even as you talk about citizen budget, there could be situations where we have inclusion, but also there could be exclusion because of systemic issues. But also understanding that our constitution really talks about a bottom-up and top-bottom approach when you're dealing with issues. Also to resonate that even as we look at our constitution, the essence of ensuring that we have public participation and citizen engagement in our constitution is to ensure that there's no discrimination, that we have equality and we have accountability, because at the center of our constitution is the rule of law. And that is very, very important. And when you're talking about the rights approach, you're basically talking about ensuring that you've also supported the duty bearers to be able to meet their obligation. So I will go to my presentation. I do not know who is beaming. Go to slide number 1. Slide number 1. I will not belabor on this, and basically we are looking at the Constitution of Kenya, which basically changed the governance structure of our country from a centralized to a devolved system. And there were certain reasons why we moved from a centralized system to a decentralized system. And also to say that our Constitution is really very explicit on certain things, and especially on Article 10 of the Constitution, which is on governance. And it just ensures that we have an elaborate provision on how to ensure that there's transparency and accountability in the running of the country's affairs. Next slide. I'll move very fast because I will not be reading the literature. Again, when you're talking about public participation and you're talking about citizen engagement, we must look at it like it is a constitutional principle. It is also a value, but it is also a right, because as I indicated earlier on, that our constitution is really a rights constitution. And what we would want to say is that the biggest challenge that we've had in our country is that we've not had an overarching legislation on public participation. But because our constitution is primarily borrowed from the South African constitution, we have borrowed a lot from South Africa, and especially on the decisions that have been made by the court on what constitutes public involvement. And there, it actually says that, that it's about participation in the decision-making process where we involve people. And at the end of the day, the people are able to make decisions affecting their own lives. Next slide. In Kenya, I think the most recent decision that was made is a decision by the Supreme Court in Kenya on the British America tobacco case, where the ingredients of meaningful public participation was really emphasized. And in this case, we recognize that the public participation is not only a value, but it's also a principle as well as a right. And I think that was very important when you're dealing with issues of public participation, and especially when you're talking about budget process, the budget making process. Next slide. I want us to move very fast. I don't know who is projecting. We need to move very fast so that I can be able to utilize my seven minutes. Again, to say that you cannot have a conversation around citizen budget and community participation without having robust legal framework. While we appreciate that the Constitution is very clear on what is required, we as a country have developed legislation that really speaks to the issues that you're talking about. The first one is the County Governments Act, which is the overarching law in terms of the devolved system of governance. It stipulates what is required of a government, the need to involve the people in making decisions, and especially when it comes to budget. We also have the Public Finance Management Act, which also provides for the hows and whats in so far as public finance management is concerned, and also the issues of the role of the citizen. Importantly, is a law on leadership and integrity, which basically puts the leadership at the center of accountability. We also have the Ethics and the Anti-Corruption Commission Act, which basically looks at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission as an institution that is responsible to ensuring that there is accountability and transparency in how public administration is conducted. Allow me to also say that we have the legislation that establishes the Office of the Auditor General, who also ensures that public expenditure is actually tracked and is also monitored. Apart from that, allow me to say that our Constitution also is very elaborate and provides for even the roles and responsibilities of the two levels of government. At the center of service delivery is actually the county governments. Go to the next slide. And where it provides that county governments must ensure that the functions that have been assigned to them are actually implemented, and at the center of implementation of the functions are actually the budgets that are supposed to be utilized in the manner that is prescribed in the Constitution and also in our law. Again, let me say that we cannot be able to have citizen budget unless we are engaging the citizen actively. If you look at the law that I talked about, that is the County Government Act, it provides for how you can be able to engage and engage meaningfully. But at the center of public participation is also the citizen engagement. You cannot have the citizen hold the government to account unless they are empowered. And they can only be empowered when they have information. And that is why the second piece of legislation is very important. That is the Access to Information Act, which is very, very important. And they say that you must be very deliberate in ensuring that you have given sufficient information to the public so that we can be able to engage, but not only in terms of just information, but in terms of financing, in terms of service delivery, performance, and service delivery areas. And one of the things that we have emphasized at the Council of Governors is to ensure that we have service charters across all the counties in each and every service level. And apart from that, then you must be able to say that for each service, what allocation has been given and how have you utilized the resources. Next slide. Could we? Yes. Apart from that, we also have the Office of the County Attorneys. And here we are talking about county attorneys in each and every counties. And one of the things that we have laid emphasis on is the need of the county attorneys to ensure that we have complied with the laws and also ensure that we have good governance, accountability, and we've emphasized the rule of law. One of the greatest innovation, I think, in the country is a community-led project management guidelines that we developed. And these guidelines really are supposed to ensure that the citizens are really at the center of, number one, identifying the projects, number two, monitoring the implementation of the projects, and also a platform for managing their own public affairs and ensuring their voices are heard. And I think these are guidelines that were borrowed from Makueni County, and Makueni County has been saying to be the county of good governance. And of course, other counties are really coming up. The second one, the other issue that is very important, or framework that is very important, is a county public participation guidelines. And this is very, very important because it provides for a practical approach for county governments to actively engage in the public in terms of policy making, in terms of planning, and also in terms of budgeting, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. Allow me to say that it is not enough for the public to be involved at the time of passing the budget, but there must be a framework where they can be able to monitor and track expenditure, because that is where the rubber meets the road. Next slide. Yeah. Now, allow us to have the why conversation, because it's very important to understand the what, but also the why conversation. Why would the citizen be important in terms of making decision in terms of the budgeting and also the utilization and all that? The first one is just to ensure that there's redistribution of resources, and that is very critical. The second one is to improve fiscal efficiency, because once the citizens are aware of what is happening, they will be able to hold you to account. The third one is to promote transparency, but at the center of it is to improve governance. Of course, somebody may say, what is governance? Governance is about anything and everything, but it is at the center of development. And allow me to also say that our constitution is a development document. It's a development tool, and which ensures that everybody is involved in the development agenda. Next slide. Now, what we thrive in as the Council of Governors is, number one, showcasing the good practices. And different counties can be said to have different good practices. But allow me to just delve into the issues of public participation and also citizen budget. Makueni government, county government, has actually been said to be the county of good governors. Now, Makueni counties has wholeheartedly embraced public participation and established a citizen-led participation framework going all the way to the village level. You recall what what the previous speaker said about their country. This is actually what is happening at the county government of Makueni. And the framework has provided the county with a solid foundation for comprehensively involving the public at inception, at the budgeting level, at implementation, and also at the oversight level. And allow me to say that this is the county that has embraced each and every population. It includes the children in decision-making, it includes the youth in decision-making. And I think this is one model that we need to really applaud. The second one is the innovation and process involvement in citizen engagement in a budgetary process. And here we are talking about the use of digital space. The digital space is very, very important. And here, allow me to say that Vihiga County has actually done a tremendous work. In terms of increased inclusivity, because here we are talking about the 47 county governments, and you're looking at emerging good practices when you're dealing with issues of transparency, accountability, public participation, budget process. West Pokot is largely a patriarchal society, allow me to say that, where women really do not participate in decision-making processes, and the male counterparts really are the ones who take over. However, this county has adopted an actor-centric perspective with affirmative action to permit a greater participation of women, the youth, the immigrants, and people with special needs. And this is one model that really must be celebrated. Next slide. I think we will be failing if we do not make a certain recommendation from this meeting. Number one, I think when you're talking about subnational governments, there's a lot of issues around the clamor for budget allocation, like any other country. And that is why in a devolved system of governance, there was a clear indication on what needs to be done in terms of functions, in terms of budgets and all that. In Kenya, we are still struggling with the transfer of functions because there are certain functions that are being undertaken by the national government. But one of the things that we have continued to do is really clamor for increased allocation to the county government. And this is very important, especially when we have to adopt technology and digital tools to support public participation. Because when you're talking about the use of technology, it has a cost implication. So even as we clamor for more budget, it's not just about the functions, but also the things that facilitate delivery of services. Number two, we must encourage and reward counties that have developed innovative approaches to public participation and citizen budget, which is very important. And that is why we amplify the good practices that are happening. And Muranga is doing an amazing job. And allow me to say that this is one county that actually received an award when we were having our devolution conference. The third one is the development and promotion of legal and policy frameworks that enhance public participation and budget delivery. And this is very important. And that really requires that we understand what really are the issues, and not only at the national level, but also at the county government. And one of the decisions that was made, and which really we liked to read, is a decision that was made on the issue of the social health insurance, and where the court said that it is not enough to engage people, but you must be able to build capacity in them to be able to engage and engage meaningfully. Because if you cannot build capacity on the citizen, they cannot engage meaningfully. Because our constitution envisages that there will be meaningful participation in all processes and also in the budget processes. But importantly is to understand that there are certain people who will always be excluded in decision-making processes, because our constitution was moving away from the boardroom and to the people. There are people who may not have an opportunity to have a conversation, and therefore their issues will not be captured in their budget. And therefore we need to understand who are the marginalized groups, who are the far-reached people who cannot be reached on an ordinary sense, and ensure that they are part and parcel of the conversation around budget. Because the citizen budget is about the people, our constitution is about the people. And if the people are not involved in decision making, then they cannot really be said to be beneficiaries of our progressive legal and policy framework. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is what I wanted to present in this meeting, but importantly to hold a conversation around citizen budget. What exactly is it? Do people understand it? Do the duty bearers understand what citizen budget is? Or is it just on paper? Is it a conversation that is being held beyond our boardrooms? Are the people having a discussion around it? Are the people able to engage and engage meaningfully, but also hold the duty bearers to account insofar as, number one, the development of the budget, number two, the utilization of the budget, but importantly, how those budgets have added value, because it's all about value addition. It's about development. I submit. Thank you.
Oh, wow, wow. Thank you so much, Madam Irene. That was a very powerful presentation. And even being a Kenyan, I have also learned a number of things from that presentation. And I hope one of these fine days I'll visit your office and get to know more about some of the topics I've highlighted here. Thank you also, Madam Irene, for sharing with us some of the best case studies we are having here in Kenya, and highlighting what exactly they are being recognized for, like Makueni, Vihiga, and West Pokot. And they're sharing with us a set of recommendations that we believe will also be very useful, not just for our colleagues in Kenya, but also colleagues in East Africa and also Southern Africa, where we have some our alumni present in this meeting. And when your last point on the marginalized group, it was a meeting I was last week, and we were wondering whether either they are too easy to ignore or they're difficult to reach. Either way, I think duty bearers will be able to learn more on how to make sure that they reach all the marginalized groups within their team. Madam Irene has crossed the set of our presenters who have been here earlier, and I want to thank all of them because they've been keeping time, and they have also shared in summary some of the best information I've had actually in a long time related to citizens' participation and also citizen budgeting, and trying to create the link between the two. And now we are opening up the space to our alumni who are here. And please raise up your hand if you'd like to make a comment or you want to ask a question to a specific presenter. And please make it short so that we can give each other adequate time and be able to finish in the next couple of minutes. Clara, you can help me if you see any hands up, because my screen can only take up to, I think, half of the screen. So in case you'd like to make a comment, either to support or to ask a question or to share your own practices in your own countries or your local governments, this is the time. We have a couple of few minutes, and then we call it a day. Who will be first? I'm trying to see both hands. Either there is anybody who has raised a hand, and as you try and pick what area you are going to ask. Maybe I forgot to say that we have a collaboration between ourselves and the Council of Governors. ICLD has a working collaboration between ourselves and the Council of Governors, and we work together in a number of issues, including recently we were engaging in data collection in the area of cities budgeting, and I'm sure we'll be doing much more. Christine Kayingo from Ginger, I can see you have raised your hand up. Christine, this is your time.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Christine.
Yes, I'm passionate about the topic of budgeting because I have done it for a very long time. But where we're having challenges, as I saw how Mr. Kuku was sharing, disseminating to the councillors, because they are the ones in charge of approval and ensuring that we realize the activities. I mean, the revenues for our budgets is key, but also mindset change is very key in budgeting, because the taxpayers have to be informed of how much money we have collected and how we have utilized it. So, and publicizing that information is very important to sustain running the budget. That's what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Christine, for that comment. Christine works in Ginger. She's an alumni. And we were together last week, 2 weeks ago, and taking a training on stakeholder engagement in Kampala with the alumni. Any other comment or question or suggestion or contribution towards how you do it in your own country? Maybe just Victor, I could, before they come up, what were the most surprising discoveries or information that you found when you came to do research in Kenya and Entebbe? Were there some areas you found quite surprising or interesting in your research when you came to Kenya and Uganda?
Well, I have to, I think I touched it a little bit upon that. The fact that citizens are, and again, this is something that we already saw back in Macedonia and in the Balkans. Citizens participate in activities, but they don't consider them valuable in a way, or they don't see the benefit they get, and that was one of the surprising things that we saw the same thing, even though we knew that participation is rooted in the constitutions of the countries. One very relevant thing, what Christian just previously said, is that we have to be aware that, and we have to give realistic expectations to the citizens. Devolution means allocating funds for certain functions within the system. So when you exclude those functions, the part of the cake, the piece of the cake that is left for the citizens to discuss and prioritize and see what's done, see what's not done, usually it's not that big. That portion of the pie, it's not that big. And we should also, through the processes of citizen budget, we should also build realistic expectations of the citizens. And that's why it is very important for citizens to have more information. Something that we really, I think that one of the biggest benefit of or finding was the fact that, and we haven't discussed this even in our first report that we did with ICLD. We somehow, when you talk about citizen budget and citizen participation and budget processes, you always focus towards the citizens. But in fact, there is a system that we also need to consider, and at the end of the day, use it as a tool to reach out to citizens and engage the citizens. I mean, the councillor from a ward or a village or whatever the system is somebody that everyone knows in that small community. If we can empower them to know more about the budget process, then citizens will also be more interested in participating because they see that the counterpart in this story knows a lot and knows how to convey that message to them. And at least there's somebody who's listening. So the presence of elected officials is very important within those small communities. Something that was also surprising is the same conclusion we had with with the research we did here in Macedonia. Basically, it's much harder to get engaged or be engaging with the citizens from urban areas. It's much easier to approach citizens in rural areas. However, the rural areas are the ones that are usually undermined or not included in the process. So if there's a larger, when you go to a rural setting, a high-ranked official coming to a rural setting, it's an event for the locals. And that's the place where those officials and those citizens need to interact and engage with each other and seize those opportunities to bring the budget process closer to the citizens is probably something that is very, very valuable. And finally, the penetration of digital tools, especially in Kenya, was mind-blowing to me. I mean, to see how local taxes or local fees are paid through an app, a system, it is something that you can see in developed worlds. So it is, again, so even though we still talk about exclusion of certain amounts of people when we talk about digitalization, yet digitalization is something that we're not supposed to forget in all of this, because sooner or later, if we look on the midterm or the long term, we will be talking about engagement on digital channels much more. I was reading on the way home this morning, I was reading a paper by a group of professors from South America talking about AI and how AI will affect citizen participation. They just created a model, an artificial intelligence model that can predict the outcome of elections based on citizens' participation on social media channels. Their interaction on those channels can tell you what they are going to be interested in or what they're going to vote for if you give them. So we have to be aware that things and the circumstances are going to be changing. And whether we want it or not, digitalization and access to digital tools will be more relevant regardless of the location where you are and regardless of the access to digital infrastructure you have or you don't have.
Okay, thank you so much, Richard, for that clarification. Another question is coming to Council of Governors from the highlights of some of the best practices like Makueni. And there's a person who would want to know if we have peer-to-peer learning mechanisms where you encourage a COG and you encourage some of the other counties to go and learn from some of the upcoming maybe best practices like Makueni, West Pokot. Do you have those mechanisms where you encourage peer-to-peer learning? And secondly, the issue of civil society organizations supporting some of the mobilizations or civic education. Are there structured frameworks you have with civil society to support in civic education, especially in the areas of citizen budgeting? That is to Madam Irene. I hope you're still with us.
Yes, still Yeah. Yes, we have a mechanism for peer-to-peer learning. One of the things we do is to document all good practices, and we have a hub that is called Marifa platform, and we'll give you a link to the same so that you can be able to see what we are doing in each and every sector. And I recall that with the new administration, with the new leadership, a lot of counties actually went to Makueni just to learn what is this secret they have and ensures that everybody is involved in decision making. And so we have that mechanism, and counties are usually very open. What we do also is that in each and every meeting that we go to, we try as much as possible to allow people to share their experiences. Like I recall that when we had a meeting for human resource managers and county public service board, we were able to go to Muranga to just understand what system is it that they are using for service delivery, and also to monitor what they are doing. And actually, we sat in the governor's office and we were able to see what everybody is doing, how the collections were coming in. And from his seat, he can be able to say, this is the amount of money that has come in, this is the amount of money that has come out. And that is why we must say that for us, peer-to-peer learning is something that we really embrace as a Council of Governors. The second one is on the participation or the involvement of civil society in what we do. Allow me to say that we do not have a structured way of doing things. Different counties have different ways of engaging the civil society. But what we did recently is to call the civil society and NGOs and to ask them, how can we be able to collaborate and ensure that we are able to deliver services? I must say that there are never enough resources. Here we are talking about financial resources and human resource to be able to deliver everything. And therefore, there's no government that has prospered without the engagement of the civil society, without the engagement of the private sector. So we may not have that framework, but it's something that we are holding a conversation around and asking ourselves, what are the strengths of the different civil society? How can we be able to engage them actively so that what we are not able to do as government, they can actually be able to do for us? And I think my colleagues on call is Andrew Musungu, who is in charge of internal audit, and we've been able to use him to ensure that we have strong internal systems. And we also have Tom, who is in charge of public participation. If there's anything that I've not left, if there's anything that I've left, I will give them an opportunity to also say some parting shot before we close the meeting. Thank you, and over.
Thank you, Director Irene. I think you've been very elaborate because, you know, counties are about 11 years old and they've been learning from each other. We've been learning from Muranga. Muranga has also been learning from other counties. COG has been coordinating these learning activities, and accountability, transparency, and good governance generally is improving. We have institutions created either by the law or created by the counties themselves to ensure that there is accountability, to ensure that there is public participation. And I think, as the director said, every county in the country has designed a way of disseminating information to the public and allowing that citizens participate in all activities happening around. So thank you. That is my only addition.
Thank you so much. And there's the last comment, so that I give it back to Clara to help us close. Katie, a call, Katie. Katie from Kapirobiong in Uganda. You are muted, Katie. You are muted. Katie, you are muted. Oh, yeah.
I'm now okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, John, for allowing me to raise up what I've been hearing Director Irene talking about, the budgeting involvement of all stakeholders, most especially the citizens of Kenya. I wanted to find out what special attention have they put to the persons with disabilities, most especially the blind and the dumb. Have you got?
Yes, I got the question. Madam Irene?
Very short time left.
All right. A very
Thank you.
short, brief answer so that we end the meeting.
As I had indicated, what we try to ensure is that entire population participates in decision making. And I know that there are certain exclusions, basically because of the nature of different counties. Now, but what we are trying to understand and what we try to ensure is that everybody is involved. The children are involved, persons with disability are involved, the older persons are involved. The strategy then is the house. How do you ensure that persons with severe disability then are able to participate in decision-making processes? What we have done is collaborate with the Council for Persons with Disability, which is a state corporation that is supposed to advocate and promote the rights of persons with disability, to ensure that when we're having public participation and when we're having engagement, we ensure that the persons with disability are actually brought to the fore and to the conversation. We have not achieved it. We are not yet there. We are also trying to see how then do we have any other ways of reaching people without necessarily talking about the physical reach, because sometimes some of them may not be able to come to where you have the engagement. But what we do is that we have representation. But what we try as much as possible to do is to ensure that the persons with disability are able to engage personally and not through representation. We are not yet there, but we are definitely somewhere as a country.
Thank you, Eddie.
Yes, Eddie, can I add to what Director has said?
Yes.
Can I?
Yes, Andrew.
Yes. We have PFM, the Public Finance Management Act of 2012, under Section 137, that has defined the composition of members of what you call CBEF, or County Budget and Economic Forum. And as Director has said, that group or the composition of the membership of CBEF brings together so many people, including people with disabilities, because it has identified the special categories, and some of them are the professionals, the business community, those who represent the labor issues, women, and persons with disabilities. And this is at the point where the input of everybody is factored in during the budgeting and the budget implementation process. So in Kenya, those special groups or those special categories are well considered, and counties are progressively ensuring that persons with disabilities sit at the table at the point of planning and budgeting. And thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you all presenters. Thank you all. It has been a wonderful learning session. Actually, I've learned quite a lot in this presentation. As you mentioned, we are going to share with you the presentation online, so message, and in case you want to reach out to any presenter, you will get access. Allow me to pass it over back to Clara. Clara, is over to you, your final comments, and also close the meeting. Thank you all, and it's wonderful to see you again.
Thank you very much. And I just really want to give the word to Kamasime very, very briefly. We have 1 minute until we're supposed to end this meeting, but I see you've had your hand up for a while. So Kamasime, please.
Hello, mine was just about to comment on budgeting process, because usually for us in our division, we shall invite these people to come for budget conference, but the people we target, they don't come. Like you find the disabled don't come. So when it comes to budgeting, we are just thinking for them. But we had wished at least those people, when they come for budget conference, they give us their priorities, so that as we budget, we think we start with the priorities. But in most cases, they don't attend these meetings, we end up again trying to think for them what they need. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that remark. I think it connects to some of what the speakers have been saying, that it is difficult to ensure participation even where the opportunity is actually there. And that's why we have to work from all fronts at the same time, and to increase information and to make it even more easy for people to participate, and also more attractive, and keep working from all fronts at the same time, and just continue the good work that is happening. But it is an ongoing
just 10
conversation.
seconds? Clara,
Yeah.
10 seconds, because
Yes.
I saw Dada's question on how do you measure the citizen participation in line with political patronage. This is a very relevant topic. This is something we all should be focusing on in the future, because currently we're measuring citizen participation based on how many events, how many people, who has participated. Instead of focusing on activities, we should be focusing on the outputs. What did those meetings result in the budget process? So instead of how many, we should be focused on what was done through those participating events. Sorry.
No, thank you so much. Very good final remark. And on that note, I think we have covered so many good things today. We have talked about the what. We have also talked about the why conversation, which is a very important conversation to have. We've addressed how the connection to a human rights-based approach is prevalent, and also how the gender dimension is present there. So thank you again so much to everyone. This is a fantastic topic of conversation to have in Human Rights Day 2024. And finally, as I say in all alumni talks, we are all here to cascade this knowledge. You are 30 advocates for human rights here, for participation, for transparency, and you all have huge networks of connections and people and pathways to transfer this knowledge on to your peers and within your organization. So we look forward to see what happens from this. Please keep the conversation going. Please talk to your peers, and we will see you in the next alumni talk. Have a nice day, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.